Hi there, Steve Kaufman. Today I'm going to talk about language learning as it relates to learning the language of one's ancestors, or the heritage language as it's fashionable now to call this, the language of your country of origin if you're an immigrant. Where do I stand on it? I had two emails or two messages at YouTube, I can't remember which. One person said that he's married to a lady from Hong Kong. He's trying to get his kids to learn Cantonese. Do I have any advice? What did I do? And then another person said that he wishes his parents had insisted that he learn Flemish. He didn't do so, and this has cut him off from members of his family, and sort of challenging me for not being keen on the idea of learning the ancestral language. So, where do I stand on this? My view is that to learn any language takes an awful lot of motivation. So if the child of an immigrant is very motivated to learn the language of origin because he or she wants to talk to their grandmother, grandfather, whatever, that's great. That's great. However, if they're not motivated to do so, then they should just be left alone. I don't think that there's any particular greater moral obligation value in having someone learn the language of one's ancestors, the language of one's ethnic group, rather than some other language. It's if I take my own case, my parents were born in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They were German-speaking in a Jewish community in Moravia. The Austro-Hungarian Empire, or at least Moravia, became Czechoslovakia, so they spoke mostly German, but at some point they started going to Czech schools once Czechoslovakia was formed. So they spoke both of those languages. But German was more natural for them. Then they left in 1939 before Hitler came in and went to Sweden, which is where I was born. And so for the first 5 years of my life, from 1945 to 1950, 1945 to 1950, I spoke Swedish. And then we emigrated to Canada, and my parents decided that we're now in Canada and we're going to speak English. And I always spoke English with my parents, and that was fine. I never had any sense that my communication with my parents was in any way inhibited. There was no pressure to learn German or Czech. If anything, my parents wanted me to learn French, which we studied at school without any great success. And they were quite happy that we spoke English because we lived in Canada. And of course, kids are very interested in hanging around with their peers, and so I think it's difficult to get kids to learn the ancestral language. Some are interested, some are not, but as I say, I don't think there's any great moral value. Like this fellow who says he's mad at his father for not forcing him to speak Dutch. Well, learn it then. I don't know how old this person is, but I'm 66 and I'm learning Czech now. Started, 10 months ago. I've learned a number of languages in the last 10 years. Go out and learn it. How can you blame your parents? Because in reality, and back in those days, you probably weren't very interested. It's like in my own case, I might say I wish my mother had insisted that I continue taking piano lessons, but I didn't want to do it. And so eventually, after fighting day after day after day around the piano, she let me quit. So it's no point in hindsight now to say that I wish she had forced me. It was just too much effort because I didn't want to do it. I developed my interest. And so far as languages are concerned, the second language that I learned was French. The first language that besides English, that I learned to speak well was French, followed by Chinese and then Japanese and then probably Spanish and German. So it had nothing to do with whatever might be considered the language of my ancestors. My wife, who was born in Macau and whose mother is Costa Rican, so therefore the language she spoke the best was Cantonese, but the language of her mother was Spanish. So now, in terms of our kids, which ancestral language should we be forcing them to learn? As it was, I couldn't even get them to learn French, which I tried very hard to do. The more we tried, the more they resisted. It wasn't until my son Mark had the opportunity to live in different foreign countries as a professional hockey player that he became interested in learning languages. So, I just think language learning is something you do if you're interested. If the parents can create an environment where the children are genuinely interested in learning the language, then they might be able to pull it off. In many cases, they won't. And in some cases, they might actually turn the kid off learning that language. So, and to me, the culture is not in the DNA. Like, we have immigrants here from I don't know, Latin America. So someone who comes here from Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, I mean, those people are also mixed. So is the ancestral language Spanish, or is it Arabic? If they're of Lebanese origin, I know Lebanese origin Mexicans. I know Jewish Mexicans. I know there are Japanese Brazilians, African origin. So what's the ancestral language? Like, how many generations are you going to go back with this? And the reality is that in all probability in Canada, within a few generations, all those people will intermarry and only speak English. In Canada, by the third generation, 2/3 of the people have spouses who are not of the same ethnic group. And so English just simply takes over. So people get very moralistic about this, it's just so obviously a good thing to learn, the ancestral language. It's part of your heritage. It's, diversity and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, if people do it, that's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But if they don't like doing it, that's equally fine. Equally fine, in my opinion. Let people learn the languages that they're interested in. I don't know if there's much more to say. Oh yeah, insofar as what we did with our kids, I mean, we tried very hard. We would travel. We sent our kids to French summer camp. When we lived in Ottawa, we sent them to a bilingual school. We traveled in France. I had a French tape going in the car, and all it did was build up resistance. The kids just hated it, and they still talk about it. Just didn't work. That's not that we didn't try, and it wasn't because it was the ancestral language. It's just because we wanted them to speak another language, one, possibly more eventually, and it didn't work. So I'm not a big fan of all of this, and you may know that I'm not a big fan of multiculturalism. In other words, the ideology of multiculturalism, celebrate the differences, as if, countries like Canada should be as diverse as possible. On the other hand, the countries of origin should be as culturally, homogenous as possible. So the whole thing is full of contradictions, but it creates jobs for people. It's a big political boondoggle, and an opportunity for a lot of politically correct people to feel very proud of themselves, but has no intrinsic value, in my view. So, thank you for listening. Bye for now.